There is hard evidence that news agencies coalesced around the left when Facebook, X, and other platforms started shifting their algorithm to promote hate because liberal women share more hateful content than any other demographic.
Because this, like I said,
that happened in 2007, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12.
This happened on MSNBC. Like I said, I used to watch MSNBC all the time. I stopped watching it.
So again, the point is, I hear this cited all the time. The Smith Modernization Act, they changed it. This allowed Voice of America and other American media outlets that operated externally to now broadcast those same websites and radio shows internally as well. That's all it did. The insinuation that somehow they then started propagandizing through the media, there's no direct evidence that anything changed, considering we know Mockingbird was happening going back to the 60s?
I think
earlier than that. Yeah. We had the Office of Censorship. Mm-hmm. We sell a T-shirt on the Timcast store from almost 10 years ago, which has it's the Illuminati pyramid toppled with the slogan of the U.S. Office of Censorship on the bottom, but flipped over. This is World War II. After that, we had intelligence infiltration into the media to determine what people could be talking about and what not. That was always in play, and it never changed.
Mockingbird was in the 60s, though.
Yes.
Your argument is that...
My argument is that the government has always used intelligence agencies to control journalism in this country to be pro-machine, pro-establishment.
USAID funding.
The 2012, yeah, right. Well, I mean, that was minimal. That was 44,000. The 2012 change in the law did not affect what they were already doing some 50 years prior.
So if I understand correctly, Mockingbird ended.
Put that in quotes, Phil.
Well, okay, but
Mockingbird didn't end.
Okay, there's no evidence that Mockingbird didn't end when it says in the Wikipedia. If you can go to the Wikipedia thing and this is the only place that you're going to get or that I can find evidence.
Most of those things just rebrand under different names, you know.
So, but again, if Tim is talking about evidence, there's no evidence that it rebranded.
I would say a lot of the problem that we're all seeing in the news is that the universities pumped out ideologues.
100%, right? I agree with that.
They coalesced around a certain idea, and that's what also degraded the audience who's also coming out of the universities.
So I agree 100%. We don't have it pulled up, but this story was, I think, 10 years ago. There was a journalist who was caught with a bunch of fake articles, and the CIA had written articles for him and published them under his byline. That was like a huge story that came out. My point is, when we're asking how it is, if you want to make the argument that powerful global interests, governments or otherwise, were trying to influence the public, the easy answer is they went to Facebook and said, you will alter the algorithm for content delivery to promote these ideas. I believe that's probably true, but I can tell you for a fact, we know, as I have done, I work in this industry, liberal women share the most content on social media, and the content they share most is things that induce rage. This was well known at the onset of social media. And so in the early days of Facebook, they were trying to figure out how to keep people on the platform longer. So they wanted to promote content that was more likely to get shared. So this created, it's a parabolic curve of sharing. The more shares it gets, the more likely the algorithm will display it, meaning it'll get exponentially more shares. And that's how you get the virality of Facebook. They began to prioritize whatever it is, and whether it was intentional or otherwise. Facebook just said, if it gets a lot of shares, show it to more people, it'll keep them on the platform longer. It'll generate more activity, more engagement. The concern was around the time that people started liking and friending at least 300 people, the reverse chronological feed was moving much too quickly for them to see anything relevant. So if they refreshed the page, they'd get a guy saying, my car won't start. Who cares? So they said, okay, algorithmic prioritization to only show the best stuff. This is when we started seeing people post things like, I just had a baby and I'm married. And then underneath it, they would write, that's not true, actually. We're having a pizza party. Y'all should come. I only wrote that because that way Facebook would show it to you. Because they knew these are the things that Facebook would promote. Right. BuzzFeed, Huffington Post, Mike.com, all of these websites started shifting their strategy towards content that was more likely to get shared. And the content that's most likely to get shared is anything that targets angry liberal women. So the example I love to cite is Mike.com in the early 2010s was a Ron Paul libertarian freedom-loving website because that was the Ron Paul revolution on social media. Everybody was sharing this stuff, but it didn't share better than things that make liberal women angry. And so what happens is You get 2 writers for one website. One guy writes, Ron Paul's great, freedom and the Fed, and it gets 1,000 shares because people were like, hey, look at this. Then you get one article that says police brutality. It was in line with the Ron Paul freedom anti-government messaging that was going around. Cops are also bad. Hence, if you look at Paul Joseph Watson and Alex Jones back then, they had a ton of videos about police brutality because it was in line with anti-government freedom stuff. These are agents of the government beating people. So what ends up happening then? These news websites like Mike.com start sharing freedom, liberty, and police brutality. But guess what? Liberal women share police brutality videos like crazy. So then this started shifting the focus. Hey, we make more money if we do police brutality videos. Then someone discovered something. When the police brutality was about racism, it got even more shares. So what they discovered was that with the Facebook algorithm, if you share police brutality, you get X views. If you share racism, you get Y views. When you write about racist police brutality, you didn't get X plus Y views, you got X times Y views because of the parabolic growth curve of the algorithm. The more shares it got, the more suggestions that were made, the more shares it would get. Then you can see in the LexisNexis data, as soon as this was implemented, every newspaper skyrocketed with mentions of systemic racism, white privilege, etc. Why? Angry liberal women share more than anybody else. So in 2014, when I joined Fusion, I talked to their marketing guy, and he outright said, when we make content, we know that we're going to get more shares and more views and make more money if we make it targeting angry liberal women. And I said, but then all your content is going to be like for angry liberal women. And they were like, well, we try to balance it out for the website after they come. And so this is what started to shift what was acceptable. Advertisers didn't want to be associated with what they thought was socially unacceptable, but the only articles that were coming out were racism, racism, racism. This ultimately exemplified itself so well in a viral article, I think it was from Vice, and it was like, Black trans women of color fighting against police brutality exemplify the end of cis heteronormative patriarchy. They tried jamming every single buzzword into one article because Facebook was going to blast it off and they're going to make a ton of money. Right. And then along came Mark Zuckerberg, who said, we're banning politics. And then it just ended that era. And maybe that was the right thing to do. I don't know.
Well, didn't a lot of conservative sites also do very well during that time as well? Like Daily Wire. Yeah, Daily Wire launched itself, and Ben did too.
So what ended up happening was Daily Wire was massive. They were the biggest distributor, but it's because the corporate press was largely just following venture capital funding and what was easiest. So when NBC was looking for content, they said, look, we're an urban liberal market. We're moderate. We don't want hardcore conservative stuff like Fox News. Let's invest in, insert media blog. Media blog starts going further and further left, brings on more and more young people. I had this argument, and I have it a lot, where people are like, it's the universities that did it. Incorrect. A 10-year-old kid gets on Facebook in, 2007. Maybe they're not supposed to be. It was supposed to be 13. No, but they do. Facebook keeps sharing police brutality videos with that 10-year-old kid. That kid grows up with nothing but police brutality videos slamming their feed for a decade. They're now 20 years old, screaming and bashing their faces on the wall about how millions of black people are being murdered every year. Why? I mean, bro, if you turned on the TV and every channel was about police brutality and beating of black people, you in your mind would be like, man, it never ends. But the reality was Facebook was forcing that down your throat. So it shaped the minds of all of these young people. They enter the workforce. They live in this fractured reality, and that's what they believe. For sites like the Daily Wire, they struggled against Jack Dorsey being the best example of how he hooked the sewage pipe of his own company into his mouth and drank it and guzzled it and gargled it and loved it. The free speech wing of the free speech party, Twitter.com. And then what happened? When his own algorithmic trend started promoting this psychotic garbage, he hooked it right into his brain and consumed it and adopted that worldview and then banned free speech. He ate the refuse of the psychotic algorithm he built. So my argument for AI and where we're going is that in the next 50 years, everyone's going to be dressed, the clothing will be corn on the cob. Everyone will be walking around in corn on the cob costumes. Cars will be largely made of corn plastics and look like corn. People go to the restaurant and order various types of corn. I'm kidding. My point is, the AI is going to look to maximize engagement, and we subsidize corn like nobody's business. The AI can't discern why we're eating so much corn. It will simply say, if the goal of the AIs is every time it delivers a response the user likes, follow that route. If Americans are predisposed towards these subsidized programs, the AI doesn't care what we need or want. It only cares what will deliver. So my joke is, not that I actually think it'll be corn, it will overly obsess with corn because it has for a human being, we don't want to eat ice cream 24/7, but ice cream's pretty dang good. If you ask a robot, I would like food, and it offered you on the spot while you were hungry, apple pie, ice cream, or, broccoli salad, people are going to be like, I'll take the ice cream. I don't want the broccoli salad. The AI doesn't care about what we need or want. It simply says human positive reaction ice cream. And it's going to chase after those things until our brains turn to jello. That's basically what happened in the early era of social media. Long story short, that's why I don't think the government just decided one day to turn on propaganda and tell all the corporate press is what they're going to do, mostly because they already had been doing that. Thanks for checking out this clip from Timcast IRL. Make sure to watch the show live Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. Subscribe to this channel, and we will see you all there.